Good evening. This is the Newfane Selectboard meeting, our regular meeting, Monday, March 19th, 6 p.m. And we welcome everybody either in their presence here or on TV. This is Mike Fitzpatrick, Chris Williams, Shelley Huber, our administrative assistant, Shannon Meckel. I'm Marion Dowling, and we have a group of people in the audience tonight, which is great. It's really good when people come and they can express their views and opinions. Okay, so thank you everybody for being here. Are there any additions or amendments to the agenda? Okay, no. So the first item on the agenda are the minutes, and we have 4 sets of minutes from different days this past month and a half. First is February 21st, 2018, regular meeting. If people have read it, is there a motion to accept the meeting?
I make a motion to...
Not the meeting, the minutes, excuse me.
Yeah, make a motion to accept the minutes.
Okay, any seconds?
21st.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor of accepting, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes on the February 21st regular meeting. Next meeting, the minutes for that are for March 5th, 2018, a work session. People have read it, please.
Make a motion to accept the Monday, March 5th work session minutes.
Okay. Anybody second those minutes, please? Okay. Is there a discussion of anything about the minutes? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, the work session minutes are approved. Next one is March 5th, 2018, the Board of Liquor Control. So anybody read the minutes and please accept them? Make a motion. Mike, and a second for that, please?
I'll second it.
Okay. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Okay. The motion passes and the Board of Liquor Control minutes approved. The last of the minutes are the March 8th, 2018 organizational minutes. The meetings for the, okay. The motion's been made. Anybody second that, please?
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion about that? Okay, all those in favor of acceptance, please say aye.
I abstain.
You abstain?
I wasn't here.
Okay. Anybody against, say nay. Okay, the ayes have it, and the organizational meeting minutes pass. Okay, the next, excuse me, I wanted to mention that Gary Delius, who is our other select board member and is out of town, has been here via telephone in these last several weeks, and he's not available tonight. Road business, road foremen and road commissioners report, please. Jay?
So the constant storms have been keeping us really busy, and we're looking forward to this storm maybe missing us. The equipment has held up really well the last few storms, and minimal repairs have been needed, so that was good.
Okay.
The truck bids are out and will be due back in April 9th. So we'll have to have a special meeting to open those. And that's something we might want to revisit, is the bidding policy. It doesn't need to be 30 days. Most of them said longer than 2 weeks is too much. They said they put them on the back burner and then forget about them. So, we've been pushing back turnarounds and roads so that as it melts, hopefully won't run back into the roads. The salt that I ordered 3 weeks ago has not showed up, and calling around, that seems to be a problem. So the salt shed's basically empty, and I'm thinking maybe for next year that we use 2 different suppliers, so we don't get caught like this again. Because apparently the other supplier out of Albany has had no shortage of salt this year, so. I'm working on writing the specifications for the excavator, so hopefully that can go out to bid soon. It takes several months to get that going, so. And that's it.
Well, thank you.
Sure.
Is there a motion to accept the road foreman's report?
Make a motion to accept it.
Okay, anybody second?
A second.
Is there a discussion about or questions to ask Jay? Anybody have anything?
Are they short on salt or just trucking?
No, Cargill apparently doesn't have salt. And American was the one at Albany, they've been able to keep their people supplied, so. We
Is
borrowed
that common with other towns at this time of year?
the ones that were using that supplier, but not normally. We've never had issues like this. Not this bad.
Okay.
So, I have a question. I guess, I didn't understand that we were bidding for trucks, I guess, and excavators, but I'm new to this, so I don't know. So I guess you just go ahead and you send out the
You
bids.
send out the specs and
Specs.
then you guys will open them at a meeting.
Uh-huh.
And then like with the truck where it takes like 6 months, 7 months to get, we do them now because they don't come in before, it'll be just barely here before winter. So it'll be in next year's budget. So,
So we have a chance to look at it and review it and decide on it?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, they're read out loud at
okay.
a special meeting. Okay, all those in favor of accepting the road foreman's report, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody say nay? Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Thank you, Jay, and your report has been accepted. Road Commissioner's report. Chris, do you have one?
It's all
That's all
together.
the same.
It's all the same.
Oh, it's all the same. Okay. I thought sometimes you have your own special.
Sometimes I say something different. It's all the same thing.
Okay, good. Okay, the next one is Certificate of Compliance.
And we, so you may have an older agenda, I changed it to say also the annual financial plan. So, the annual financial plan, the state V-Trans comes and goes through our town report and the budget that was passed for the highway. And that determines what our annual highway budget is, which also helps them determine what our portion of aid will be for highways, and also our threshold for emergency assistance if there was to be another event. Our budget determines how much damage we have to have before we're eligible for assistance. So that financial plan was actually drawn up by V-Trans for us, and then they just need the board to review and sign.
So we review it, and this is a yearly,
Yep, so you have to
Compliance.
sign each of those every year. And
okay.
the other one just says we're compliant with the standards that were adopted by the town in 2013.
Okay. Would you like to sign and pass it along? Can we read it?
So
I had looked at it.
what's the difference of it from year to year?
Oh, okay, before we sign, excuse me, thank you. Chris always comes to my rescue when I forget something. We have to make the motion to accept the report. So all those in favor of making a motion to accept the report, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, anybody? Anybody abstain? Okay.
No discussion?
Now discussion.
So I guess my question is just if, is this quite different from last year because of the
It is a
budget?
bit different. This year, they are required to include capital expenditures in it.
Uh-huh.
So what that means is our threshold for damage is a little higher
Higher, okay.
than it would have been, although I think it came out to the threshold for damage is $35,000 now instead of like 20,000, so still a pretty easy number to hit.
Okay.
So now we can vote. All those in favor, did we do that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And nobody opposed before, so we've accepted this, and the motion passes. Okay, thank you. As soon as this is signed, Shannon, can you read your report? Administrative
You want me to
assistant.
go ahead while you're signing?
What?
I'll just go ahead while you're signing.
Yeah, go ahead.
We were awarded one more grant. I believe this is the last of the grants we applied for and received all of them, which is pretty cool.
That's great.
This is the V-Trans Alternatives Grant that will help pay for the box culvert on Depot Road. The amount of the grant is $160,000. Our match will be $40,000,
Oh, that's fine.
so that's terrific.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Yeah. I've sent out letters for all of the appointments to committees and various positions that you did at the organizational meeting. They're starting to come back in now. So at the end, if anybody didn't want to accept a position or you still have vacancies, I'll put them up on the website. And in the meantime, the one vacancy that we do have was the Conservation Commission, so I put up an explanation of what they do, so.
Okay, great, thank you.
The intent to sell municipal land was posted on March 7th and published in the newspaper of record on March 9th. The 30-day waiting period ends on April 8th, which is a Sunday, so April 9th really.
Okay.
And I just want to say thank you to the board for a great town meeting. Everybody was really well prepared and did a fantastic job. And I wanted to say thank you for your kind words and acknowledgement at town meeting. It was
Well, you're
really
very
nice to hear.
welcome.
Thank
And
you.
you know what? We couldn't do it without you.
Oh,
And we say that all the time, that you are the absolute best and do everything with such real precision and
Professionalism.
absolutely. So thank you. I think we did all have a good meeting.
it was a great meeting.
Yeah. So thank you so much. A motion to accept Shannon's report, please.
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Excuse me, was there any more discussion about the report? Okay. Any opposed, say nay. Any other thing that might be said before that? And the ayes have had it. Ayes have it. And the motion passes. Shannon, your report's accepted. Thank you so much.
I missed the eye.
The what?
I missed the eye.
Okay. We are early on the agenda.
Coffee break.
Coffee break. So we have two scheduled members of the public. The first one is Michael Mayer about land donation, and so far he's not here, but he will be here, as he said he would.
Okay.
At 6:30 is his time. And also the Brookside residents are supposed to be here at the same time to report their findings after Michael Mayer's. So we're going to give them time to show up, Shannon, till
Go on to the next
6:30?
one.
Move on.
Yeah, go on to the next one, just go back.
Yeah. Well, the next one is unscheduled members. Are there any unscheduled members of the public? No.
No.
Okay. Just the people who are here.
I'm here for the next one.
Yes.
Discussion.
Old business. Fire department discussion. Shannon, you want to talk about
Did you
that?
want to do new
New
business
business?
No
first?
business.
The new business. Oh, right, I'm sorry, you know what, I put the financial policies. Okay.
So at the organizational meeting, I presented some financial policies that haven't changed at all. The only reason I was asking for them to be re-signed is because the former treasurer had signed them, that she understood and accepted them. We don't have current copies with the current treasurer signature, so I'm just updating the
Yeah.
signatures is all. And I emailed them to everybody to look at, so if you don't have changes, I have no changes.
Okay.
And they're there, there's 4 of them.
So this is the same report other than we need the new treasurer's signature.
So how she's
So-
operating.
Anybody have a question for Shannon about this? No. So can we have a motion to accept this, please?
Motion to accept them.
Okay,
I'll second it.
okay. Is there any discussion about the financial policies? Any questions? Okay. So all those in favor of accepting, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, the ayes have it, and the motion passes. Next, under new business, is the flag for town ceremonies. Shannon, would you like to explain that? Or do you want me to?
Christopher asked to have
Oh,
that on the
Chris,
agenda,
of course,
so
I'm
let-
sorry. Chris.
The town does not have a flag, well, they had one, but it came up missing. And we need one for meetings. And the town took the fire departments, and the weather was bad, and the fire department wanted it back, and it didn't get back in time. I think the town ought to own one of their own.
Yeah, that would be great.
I mean, I would almost thought they'd have it in the building anyways.
I have one in the back of my car for the Lions Club we can use.
I found a new flag in my closet the other day, but I don't know if it'd be big enough for what.
No, we should get a flag and a pole for,
Yeah,
post
yeah.
for it.
yeah, that would be great.
Do you need the Vermont one too?
I was just gonna ask that question.
Oh, that would be
No,
nice.
that's okay. Have both the US and Vermont flags?
But my understanding was that it was borrowed from the fire department to bring to Union Hall for the town
Right,
meeting.
correct.
Okay, so on the year that we have our meeting at Williamsville, do they already have flags that we can use, or will we have to transfer
There
them?
was one there, but it came up on the Mrs. Patty list.
Huh.
Okay, so would that mean we need 2 new flags?
No, we only need one, it can be moved back.
This is Union Hall up here. It's-
Yes,
That's the townspeople
Right.
and that up here under the front.
You just bring it back and forth to wherever.
Well, that's what I mean, we would have to
We
transfer.
only need one.
Oh, yeah, okay, good.
I wouldn't think they're that much anyways, are they?
Well, I don't know anything about what the cost of a pole is.
Size
Is that
and
expensive?
It's probably a couple, it could be $100, $200.
Yeah, for the pole.
We need
And
one.
in the flag, the Vermont flag, you know.
How we usually donate our money that we get for selectmen, I'll donate money towards the flag. Maybe a pole too.
Flagpole?
Yeah. flagpole.
Yep, there's, each set has a signature page. Is there any more discussion about getting a flag?
I like
and
the
the
fact
pole?
that he's donating his money, so I didn't know he got money, but I'll donate mine.
You'll
for flags.
donate what, the flag?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. That's great.
Definitely we need a flag, and I think we should have an American flag and a Vermont state flag
Okay.
with separate poles, I guess.
I also have a United States flag I can donate. I don't know what size you have, but if it's the same, we can have a second one.
Yeah,
Well, we should just buy some new ones, I guess, and new poles.
I'll look up some prices and see
Yeah.
what they are.
They usually have like a brass base or something, wooden stick.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be great.
Well, thank you, Mike.
And I'm gonna donate mine whatever it is. You know.
$100.
You are donating your whatever it is? I mean, see, we have interesting meetings.
Stipend, salary, I don't know what it is.
Okay, that's good.
It's my donation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so all those in favor of getting our own flags for town meetings and for this building also, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, say nay. Any other abstentions? Anybody? No, okay. So the motion passes and we're going to get flags and flagpoles and some, I don't know what. Okay, moving right along. Well, now, you are from Brookside.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Am I the only one? Yeah, sorry.
Okay, could you tell me your name again?
Jen.
Jen, thank you. I remember you.
I had to
Yes,
drive, I
ma'am.
was working for town today. So
Okay, I know that Lynn is not able to come tonight because she's not feeling well. Do you know if anybody else was gonna come from your meeting?
I think everybody was really busy, so they knew I was coming and they were kind of moving it up to me. So, did you receive my last email about our visit to Dennis Tier Science?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I printed it out along with
Oh,
the,
excellent.
the quote that you got too.
So,
This one, yeah.
yes, so since we saw you last, we've been, as a group, going back and forth about design and then who we would look to make one for us. And the Dennis Tier came highly recommended from the Historical Society. And we had some good conversations with him on the phone, and he just seemed really down to earth and practical and a good price. And so we went over to his studio. He sent us an initial drawing, but it was just Brookside alone, and then other people in the committee suggested that it should say entering historic Brookside. So we went back to look at his studio and looked at the fonts he has, and we still had in our mind what used to be there. So what we came up with is a black background with kind of a beigey, kind of antique looking print, very much in the style of the railroad, traditional railroad signs. He calls it West River rail font. It's kind of a font that he has reclaimed from old historic
really?
signs from around here. So we looked at the colors, and I think the kind of paint and everything was on the estimate. It's $250 per sign. So we were going to have one on the plan. Our hope is to have one where the old sign used to be or close to that, which is right at the bottom of William Mundell Road, right in there, or a little further towards Adams Hill. That's when people are entering Brookside from that side, even though there's not a lot of space in the road. So that original spot is where we designed the sign to fit there anyway. And then the other spot coming near Pete and Hilly's house, we noticed, I took some pictures, there's two telephone poles that seem to make sense right across from like Lynch Bridge. So somewhere in there before you hit Pete and Hilly's mailbox, basically in there, before right around the 35 mile an hour sign is. But of course the road crew would know better than us about where it should go. But that's where we were thinking. Anyway, one on each side, and he said he doesn't do electronic CAD drawings or things like that, or whatever the words are. He hand draws everything. So he does want a deposit before he really gets into laying out the exact design. He wants to know what's really going to happen before he.
Will you have photographs?
Yeah, do you
I-
have any sketches or?
So he went over and he like hand sketched it out for us, and it's my computer melted down. I just went and picked it up before I could send you. I wanted to send it to you before the meeting. So
Yeah.
it was on my phone. So sorry.
It's okay, take your time.
Do you want to go on to another order of business?
No.
Okay. I grabbed them on my phone. Maybe I can bring it in here to make it work. It's basically a rectangular sign, and
It
then
looks like it's a 12-inch by 48.
that's a mistake.
Oh,
It should be 18.
Okay.
He resent that. Do we have?
18 by 48?
Yes, 18 by 48. That was a mistake. He resent. I'm so sorry. Phone's not here. Let's get my file. So do you want to go on? I feel bad holding you
Don't
up.
feel bad.
No, that's all right. We'll just ask questions. So do you know if there's going to be a trim on the sign?
I don't think so.
No trim?
Well, yes, I think he was gonna do like a gray or a darker black on the trim. We were trying to keep it super simple. You mean like wooden trim?
Yeah.
No, I think the idea was to keep it very inexpensive and simple and have it look like the old sign did, which was it doesn't have like, the entering South Newfane one has all that wooden trim and the fancy, it's not like that, it's much
My only
simpler.
concern is that the water would get into it.
Oh.
The edge, it would warp it more quicker. It would destroy, I've made wooden signs
Right.
before
Yeah.
commercially.
He knows exactly where we're putting it, and he does this all the time.
Yeah.
He was going to do a marine paint. Did he write that out on that estimate?
Guys, you set it, yeah?
What was that?
Who's gonna set the sign?
Well, that was we were going to ask you because we figured the road crew would know best. Yeah, I just remember talking about trim. I think it was a black on black. He he's a he makes signs for outside all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't think he would need
Well, it would
us.
just be nice to see what the sign kind of looks like
Yeah.
and,
Okay.
a little bit more detail for me. It's, it's
Yeah.
not inexpensive.
Right. Yeah. So is anybody ever here with Dennis? Yeah. It's very kind of old school. He was kind of sketching it while we were there. And
So I think what we need to do
okay.
is probably.
Yeah,
And that's what we
need to
liked
have-
about it.
We need to have a copy of the sketch,
Okay.
at least. And does he say how long it will take if we commission him, so?
He said like a month. Yeah.
And how much for a deposit did he ask for?
I think he asked for half.
50%?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's 500
Total for 2 signs.
total.
Yeah.
Yes, I think we need to look more.
I'll just run out and see if I can at least get you the pictures of the shop that I took. You keep talking if you want. I think they're in my
Oh,
car.
okay, where are you going?
They're in my car.
Oh,
my phone. Is that okay if I just go grab it?
Of course, sure.
Sorry, I'll just grab it.
Yes, talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, the color scheme.
Yeah. Brown, no,
Black and.
black and a light brown, tan. Does everybody know what she's speaking about?
I remember the sign vaguely years ago.
Yeah,
It was on the next house up from Marie's, on that side, Brook.
Uh-huh.
And it was a simple sign.
that's what
It's
she
been going
said.
a long
And that would be
time.
nice
Yeah.
to replicate that.
I wonder how it's gonna be hung. If we
That's
kind of-
Jay, he's hanging
Got
it.
that, got that
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I mean, this is just a sign, so it's not in a post or anything.
Well, you'd put 2 posts, one on each end
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah, and I
And
know
if you
That's
want-
how he designed it because
And then
it
we
was a 2-post.
Oh,
The
he
old
did.
sign was stolen from a 2-post.
And then
I
we
guess
can
you
add
want to
trim
protect
to
it a little more. I've seen a lot of times they put like a little thing over the top, So
Yeah,
this thing sits in the middle and you got like a little bit of like a.
so we're
12
just,
inch
we're just
bit to
talking
it.
about just the sign.
Like this, just a plain,
I mean,
A rectangle
I think
with 2 posts.
He's planning on making a sign that would be fit to be outside for decades. He talked
Right,
about
but
waxing.
It doesn't have a post and this, it's not a stand. It's just the sign.
With the idea that based on where the old sign was, with those 2 metal, I don't know what's the correct terminology for them. The current
Post,
posts, the metal posts,
yeah,
exist actually. The
This
sign
one?
that was stolen was unscrewed from those.
okay,
So we showed him pictures of that,
uh-huh,
took measurements of that, and that's what he based the design on.
uh-huh.
Now, those old posts have been there for 40, 50 more.
Yeah,
So it probably wouldn't be a bad idea even on that spot to maybe look at new posts. And then
Yeah.
the second sign would need,
yeah.
I'm almost wondering, since you have expertise in the area,
Mhm.
if I were to, show you these pictures so you get an idea, but then if you actually want to talk to him and get a sense.
Well,
And
he's
just-
just making the sign.
Right.
We have to set it in a post post and put some trim on it just to protect the edges.
Well, I think we should I think you should talk to the person, the carpenter, who's doing that, in terms of the trim. If-
Yeah. He didn't write anything about trim in there on that estimate?
How that would affect the look of it, given that you were saying you wanted to duplicate the old-fashioned one.
Well, nothing has to be really thick, it could just be a cap, you know?
I think he was thinking a cat. I mean, I
Okay.
remember him mentioning it.
Okay.
But I think there was the idea around the color, because he talked about whether we wanted gray, and I think he decided to keep it the same color as the background of the sign. He just didn't write that out on the estimate.
No, so are the colors like the original colors from the original sign?
So the original sign was white with black.
Uh-huh.
And so the discussion, and Darlene felt pretty strongly that it should actually be a darker color, because the white would end up looking dirty. And so there was another old sign from that era in his shop that was black with this kind of ochre, you know, like off-white color. And it looked
Oh, okay.
really nice and of that era.
Uh-huh.
Also, the idea that it would show up in the winter and show up in the summer, being those colors. Whereas the kind of Vermont green that often ends up in signs doesn't really show up very well in the summer.
Interesting.
Right. But I'll try to find some photos here. But yes, he's not accustomed to doing, I think, really detailed estimates. He seems like a pleasure to work with. His shop, he does good work. You know, I've seen his finished signs. After talking with the people at the Historical Society, I was working downtown for one of the educational collaborative I work for, and they got a call from Dennis because he was coming over to put in their sign, which looks great. So he has a good reputation. I just think he does things.
Yeah. Did some other people go with you? or-
Darlene Eisenhuth went with me. And then other people in the neighborhood were the ones weighing in on this simple look. Chris Erickson felt like it should look
No,
like
it
a
should be
real...
a simple, I think it should be a simple. Do you have sketches?
Yes, so let me, just try
He does good work.
That's cheap now.
Well, I think that it's great that you and your community have taken on this.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, that's going to, I had to do 2 presentations all week. I kind of fit this in today, so sorry it's not more organized.
Oh, no, it's all right.
Trying to figure out what day we were there. Here we go. So you can get a sense of, this is him in his studio, so sketching him.
Okay,
So, and then if you go to the right,
go to
you
the
can
right.
kind of, yes, you can kind of
Okay.
see him sketch, but it's not, there's kind of a, you know, and I can push back with him and just say, look, I mean, that is such
Entering
a,
historic Brookside.
And that's a font you want.
well, I mean, again, it's hand sketched, but the West River font,
Yeah, I'm trying to get that to turn around. I mean, so they can.
Sorry, I didn't end up emailing this to you. You don't have it yet? Okay, so this gives you an idea of the layout of the sign. Like, that's not the exact font. I have a picture. I did take a picture of the font.
Yeah, it's not moving.
So that gives you the square of the sign with a little design on each side.
Yeah, it's got the.
And he was very-
And then Brookside's gonna be bigger.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
This is just a sketch.
Totally makes sense. He just-
Yeah, it looks like he does.
But I'll show you the West River.
I think it would be nice to have a little more detail of the sketch.
Yeah.
You know, not changing the, you know, but to get a bigger.
He just, I mean, he basically saying he doesn't do sketch, hand sketches until he gets it done.
Oh,
That's what he was saying, but we could push back.
Well, do you guys think we should give a deposit, or do we want to look at other?
Let me see if I can find the West River font.
Shannon, I have to ask you, where would the funds be coming from with this?
Well, we have a sign budget.
Okay. So if we vote on this, and if we vote on giving this gentleman a deposit, we have the money to do so? Okay. So why don't we do that? Does anybody who would like to make a motion for allowing the Brookside Village people to go forward and order the sign? And Jen just said that if we do order it from him, he's requesting a 50% down payment. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I think even if we were to say, well, you know, if you went into the meeting minutes, you know, showing that it was a real, you know, it was really that you were going to approve this,
It's going to be in the minute.
Yeah.
then I think he would probably turn a sketch around really quickly.
I'll make a motion, go ahead and do it.
I'll second it.
Second, okay, great. Any further discussion?
I got a,
Yes.
all bulletproof glass and booby trap the thing.
Yes.
Because it's gonna be stolen in a couple of weeks.
No, we're going to get the booby traps and the animal
Okay.
cages.
Well, I mean, that was part of the reason he didn't want to go really fancy with it,
Yeah.
because, you know, we've already had one stolen. You know, the one that was stolen managed to stick around for 50 years, but
Yeah.
but he didn't, you know, want to go all.
Well, maybe Jay can figure out how to lock it in.
We get creative when we put signs up.
Yeah, we'll get a cage on each end.
Go through a stand.
Oh, most all the towns have got them now, so they stick around there for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like it to make it so it looks nice, not just writing on it.
Well, and I think I want you all to approve the fun. If we can get some good sketches here, and you all tell me is email the best way?
It would be nice to
Email
have,
to Shannon.
yeah.
And then have her forward it to you. All right.
To Shannon.
Okay.
We
We'll do that. And-
definitely would like a better sketch.
Yeah.
Color-wise too.
Right. And I'll tell him that
And lettering.
it's all dependent on really what the group wants to
Right.
see, more details. So a color swatch, the exact layout, and what the font looks like.
So then what the motion should be tonight is that we are approving this contingent upon your speaking to him again, saying that we would like to have a sketch that really will represent what what you want. And then we are willing to give a 50% down deposit. Is that right? Okay.
I'd like to just say, you know, to have the color in the sketch and not color swatches on the side. So to show the
Yeah.
color
As it will be.
in the sketch.
Okay.
As close as, you know,
As close as he can.
Yeah.
And then answering the trim question, whether he was even, if he was even considering trim.
yeah, that would be fun.
Okay.
Okay, so Mike, do you want to expand the motion rule to say contingent upon?
Sounds good.
Okay,
And again, I apologize for being so late about it.
don't
that's
worry
okay.
about it, you're doing
We
a
got
good
through
job. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
All right.
I,
Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, so the motion is approved, and Jen, you will go back to this gentleman and request that in order for us to move forward with the deposit and a strong commitment, we are very interested, and we would give him that deposit when we see a sketch, so that we have a good sketch.
well, I don't think he's gonna do a sketch without the deposit.
No, but you were just saying
I was
that if...
trying to push, but he was really saying he didn't want to do sketches without deposit. I think he's been burnt before.
Okay, so, but you also said that if he sees our minutes that we discussed this all, and he can watch
Oh, it doesn't matter,
TV.
you have to give them the deposit,
Right,
but we
exactly.
still want to see the final
The
thing.
sketch.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what, I
exactly.
thought that's what the motion was.
Like I said, I just didn't see a little more detail
Yeah.
what he's got there on that.
Right.
It's like the sign out here, when we did that, it's just words, and they
Right.
put
Yeah.
that seal up, and I think it looks 10 times as good, you know.
Yeah. So, you know, you can just explain that's how we operate, and it sounds very good, but we need to see a little bit of some.
So no deposit until the sketch, or
Now
are we
we
giving
use
you?
money to work, I mean, you already agreed that he's on the job today, so.
So then do you want to make a motion
We
to
already
give him
did.
Already did.
50% down now? Okay. All those in favor of including that in the motion, that we will give 50%?
I think that was my first motion anyways.
Okay, first motion and second motion.
All right, I'll ask him to do that as soon as possible. If anybody wants to field trip to
Okay.
his sign shop, it's pretty neat.
It's gonna be a few days when we gotta put it up anyway, so.
It's on West.
So Shannon, will Jen get a check from you?
Yeah.
If you, actually, I think I can choose the quote, as an invoice, and I'll put 50% down.
Okay, and I'll have him talk to you?
Yes, just
I
have
think
him
that would
call
be
me.
good too, then that'll get him to start on it. and
Yeah,
realize that
absolutely.
It's
Have
a
him
real
call
deal.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you for understanding.
Okay, well, so it's all sealed, the motion, and thank you so much for the time you're spending on this. And as I said, you'll have to give us a tour when the weather ever changes.
Well, the interesting thing is, I think many of you know Sonny Brown. He's actually lived in Eastover, but growing up, you know, like so many kids on that end of town, they would go to school. They went to school in our little schoolhouse, even though it was South Newfane. And we were at his sugar house recently, and he was talking about this and that of Hunter Brook and all these stories of our neighbors. And I asked him if he would take us on a historical walk all through up Hunter Brook, because he knows a lot of
Your village.
he knows a lot more about our village than he and Merrill and most. And so you know, with
That
your
would be lovely.
so we'll try to figure something out.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we're going back to the scheduled members of the public, and Michael Mayer is here. Hi, Michael.
Yes.
Okay, would you like
Can I
to?
join you up here, maybe? It might be easier since I'm not hosting.
No, yes, I would like you to come up here.
There's a chair right there.
Yeah, if you want to sit on this
There's one
chair.
on that end there too.
Yeah, or you could sit there, Dan.
I like this one.
Okay, good.
So,
So,
would you like to start or should I just jump in?
I think you might as well start. I mean, I know that you were here on December 18th, 2017, and you made a proposal to us, and we had a lot of discussion, and then we signed something called a memorandum of understanding with you. And the agreement on that paper was that we would have 45 to 60 days to talk to the attorneys about this land, and Michael will review this with you. And so you were going to follow up with us. So I have to say that right now we're on day 90, almost exactly, because it was December 18th that we were here, and now we're 3 months later, on March 19th. So it's basically 90 days. And so, and this paper that I signed to represent the select board, I asked Shannon if she ever got the response with Rebecca's signature on it, but she says no. Did you ever have somebody sign this? Otherwise, it's really
When you're ready to have me talk, I'll just go through where we are and
okay,
and
so
I'll
that's
answer
a
that
question.
question.
Okay. So that's it. Why don't you
Sure.
let us know what you're up to and where we are.
Sure.
What
Well,
you're going to be.
thanks again for scheduling time to talk again. My thanks to Shannon. When I reached out to her, Shannon was available. We had a couple of good chats, and I'd like to review with you just some of what that was and where we are.
Absolutely.
I've got some objectives for being here now by way of update and so on, but let's just jump in. Would you like me to review for those who are not familiar with the transaction, for some of those who are present, or should I just assume that everybody knows a little bit
If you
about
can
what we're
give a
doing?
quick review, it would be
Okay.
great, not only for the audience here, but for people who will be watching this
Sure.
online
Sure.
and on TV.
Pamela and David Mayer were my parents. They acquired approximately 245 acres of land up across the Rock River in Williamsville alongside Sunset Lake Road and just going up the slope going south. And they had a vision of wanting to make it conservation land with trails, with programs, and around the same time, which is in the late 1980s, they formed the nonprofit Manitou Project, which has been conducting camps, programs, developed a 9-mile trail system, and it's well loved by a certain number of people locally and certainly within the region. When they passed on, they put ownership of the land into the Mayer Family Trust, which is myself and 3 sisters, one of whom is now deceased, which is one of the complications now. And the 20-year term of the trust expired 2 years ago. And it was hoped that over the course of 20 years, the Manitou Project would have the funds sufficient to buy the land from the family, and that would be family's inheritance. But that didn't really work out. Manitou as a nonprofit just doesn't have that kind of financial heft. So what has been going on the last year or so is review of various options for what disposition of the land would be. On one end of the spectrum, you have, well, sell it to whoever comes in, and frankly, the only people who are willing to put up money for that property are loggers. And I neglected to say that the land was put under conservation easement with the Vermont Land Trust, so the development value of the land is nominal. There are no building sites allowed on that land, so it can't be bought by someone from the south who want to put a vacation home, or a developer coming in and create a number of vacation homes. So our options were sell it to a lumber guy, which nobody was really terribly excited about, or possibly find a conservation partner. And we approached a number of different organizations, Putnam Mountain Association, Pinnacle Hill, various others. And what ended up becoming the most appropriate was actually offering to have a relationship with the town of Newfane, wherein the Mayer family would make a gift of the land as well as a certain amount of money in lieu of taxes, so that the town could use the resource as a basis to expand the town forest. And this was something that was very well received by the town's planning commission, and at the last meeting, a presentation by Angela Sandberg gave testimony as to why that was such a great idea. I noticed on the tape of your meeting, February 21st, the question was asked, well, should we be in the business of owning land? And there wasn't really an answer to that. Well, the answer to that was really in her testimony, which is, this is what the town people really want. When they had a community forum, a number of people said, how can we expand our trail system, expand the recreational opportunities that the town offers for potential new families and for existing families. So the whole idea of moving this forward, I think, has been pretty well embraced, at least by the people we've spoken with. So maybe by way of background, yeah, the good faith attempt to try and get something done within 45 to 60 days was in fact good faith. And in my correspondence of March 2nd to Shannon after our second conversation, let me just, did you all get a copy of this letter? I'll review some of the main points of it.
I did forward it, but I don't.
Okay.
It was a bit ago.
Well, let me just jump into the 3 issues that letter touched on as a basis for a further discussion here. Number 1, getting communication straightened out. Now, how Shannon's attempt to reach me turned out to be messages left for someone other than me, someone with my name, who ended up, I'm sure, having all kinds of puzzling reactions to what Shannon might have been telling him. And my explanation for reaching out to her when I did, and not beforehand, was I felt it was appropriate for me to reach out once I had something of substance to report. And about, I don't know, 2 months ago, we got word that the person who was going to assist us with the transaction, a charitable backer who was going to help the Mayer family carry out the land donation to the town, she no longer was part of it. She decided to give her money elsewhere, which left us in a difficult position because we have about $68,000 in out-of-pocket costs that we have to cover, my sisters and I, in order to make this deal work. And I'll go through with you what those dollars are, but I wanted to make sure that we had a way through that before getting back to Shannon, because I didn't want to say, gee guys, this thing is really hard and I don't know if we can do it. I wanted to have an answer before coming back to you. Well, we do have an answer. It's not a complete answer, and the back end of what I'd like to share with you is some suggestions. But I think that really covers what you and I talked about on March 2nd. And I was actually wanting to get here before, I guess, the last meeting, just before town meeting, but Shannon got back to me and said, no, we're all tied up with town meeting, so let's make it an official.
Also, that meeting wasn't an open meeting.
There you go. So here we are. So,
Yes.
so thank you for your patience on this, and now we do have clear lines of communication, and I've put my email down in several places, so there's no way you can't reach me if you need to. So first of all, I'd like to share with you some of the direct costs that we have to pay cash to cover, and the second thing I'd like to do here is raise a question about an idea that is both conservation-based and revenue-enhancing that might be something we could all think about, and maybe that's where I would.
You know, excuse me, Michael,
Yeah.
I made a mistake when I just said something. I shouldn't have said it wasn't an open meeting. It was an open meeting, but we had a full agenda for preparing for the town meeting the next day. That's what I meant to say, that
Understood.
we weren't going to take on other subjects that night.
And I'm so glad out here. I've been battling on for however long. You certainly wouldn't have been as comfortable listening to me with the town meeting the next day. The $68,000 that we have to dig into our pockets for, there are really four areas that we have to be thinking about. One is when we originally had plans to find the right home for the land, we had an agreement with the broker, and he was the one who came up with the idea of working with the state and working with the conservation donor and all of that. Well, even though the conservation donor pulled out, we feel like there's a moral obligation to pay him, and the rate is less than what it would have been, but that's $10,000 now. The $20,000 cash donation that we were going to make to the town of Newfane, half of that would have come from the mayor family, half from Manitou. Manitou would have done fundraising to come up with 10, and then the mayor family would come up with 10. So that's 20 so far. Legal accounting appraisals, another 10. And another, the last is a problematic area. There were originally 4 mayor siblings, myself and 3 sisters. My elder sister died, and her 2 nieces are beneficiaries of the trust. And we need to pay them a negotiated share of what their value in the trust would have been, and together that amounts to $38,000. So if you add all that up together, that's 68 grand, along with the Manitou fundraising, which is another 10. Maybe I'll just stop right there before I jump into this revenue-generating idea that I wanted to share with you. Any further questions that you have at this point?
Does anybody right now, and can we include the audience at this time? To ask questions? Okay. Is there anybody?
I got it.
Yes.
This is all theoretical at this juncture. None of this is real other than the 68,000, which is your problem, not ours. But you've got to come with a concrete plan that can be presented in 15 to 20 minutes. Otherwise it gets boring, nobody pays attention.
Well, that plan's been done, and the plan is in place, and we're ready to transact this whole deal. So you come in at a point not knowing that we're essentially ready to go to transact this deal, other than do we, how do we deal with that $20,000 is ultimately the question at this point. So I think, I understand your question, but the context for this is the lawyer, I still don't know who your lawyer is for the town, but Gene Giddings, representing us, is finalizing the paperwork on our end to make this thing
Has
happen.
Gene Giddings sent anything to you, Shannon?
No.
Well, again, it wouldn't go to you, it would go to your attorney, so we need to know who the attorney is.
Rich Carroll.
Rich Carroll, so if you and I can, if I know, she probably knows him anyway, but that's...
Chris Williams?
Yeah,
If this land comes to the town,
yes.
there cannot be any strings attached to it. It's gotta come clean to the town of Newfane.
You
There can't
remember?
be, you can't do this, you can't do that. No, if it goes to the town, it's for the town, and that's it, point blank, in my opinion.
When I originally came to you on December 18th, the reason why we were coming to you after having spent a good deal of time with the Planning Commission was the reason why donation to the state for state forest was something we were backing away from, was the state said, well, we may want to run snowmobiles through there. And we said that would so seriously destroy the fragility of the wetlands. It would go against the recommendations of the state foresters, who were very much opposed to such use for the land. The governor overrode that and said, nah, economic development is what would carry this deal. And conservation's nice, but we want to be able to run snowmobiles there if we want to. So when I came to you in December, it was, that's a consideration for us. And if the town were to do whatever it wanted to do within the guidelines of the conservation easement of the Vermont Land Trust, and if you were to allow snowmobiles, then we might as well just give it to the state. And I think, didn't we have that conversation? I mean, I think...
Yeah, we did, we had that. The one thing was with the snowmobiles, so I asked about the logging, you said that could happen.
Yeah.
Because first you said like, no equipment and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be used for the conservation, for hiking and whatever else.
Yeah.
And we have the right to log it. And the only other thing was the 20 grand coming towards the town to do the taxes, which, yeah, and what I also said to you is, you can't just give it to the state, because the town has to okay that.
That's true.
So, I mean, they couldn't get it anyways unless we signed off on it. And like I said, if you're gonna give it to anybody, you might as well go to the town, so we have somewhat control over it. If you're not gonna get taxed out of it, the town might as well have what to say about it, you know? If the state gets involved, you ain't got no say about it. And, yeah, I mean, so the only thing you're worried about right now is the 20 grand, right?
Well, I'm
other
concerned
stuff
about
you're
this
thinking-
idea, no strings. And I said, well, actually, we kind of talked about that. And-
Well, it was a snowmobile issue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
No,
we
but there's
understood
other
that.
things too, because, first of all, we're just 5 people representing the town, and we have to get feedback from the residents of the town. And also that memorandum that I signed was the memorandum of understanding, included talking to our attorney and finding out, getting legal advice, which we did on our side.
And you requested the forest plan, which I got to within
Yes, we
24
did,
hours.
and
Yeah, thank you.
we got opinions and advice from our town council. And then from December 18th until tonight, this was brought up as agenda items at other meetings. I don't know if you watched any of our meetings, it was brought up. And we said that just the way if you buy a house or any kind of property from somebody, if the town takes on this land and we are then totally responsible for everything, then the land is the town's. And then whatever you did or whatever the previous owner did is not part of the deal. It's-
Well, you can have restrictions on land, because I mean,
No, I'm talking about the land.
I had a separate lot on
No,
the
I
side.
understand that we have the land conservation.
And what he said that night at the meeting was the snowmobile thing. I asked about the logging, and I was okay to use the equipment on logging. And the only other thing was, he said the guy is doing the conservation stuff now, going over the trails, helping the trails, was willing to stay on board to help the town to maintain the trails and
You
stuff.
talking about the Manitou group?
No.
No. No, but we
They were
also,
never gonna be in charge unless we wanted them to be part of
Yeah,
it.
that-
Let me refresh what it was I offered, which was the Manitou Project has a whole group of volunteers that are actively, they love the land, they love being on it, and they love working on the trails. So as a free service, the Manitou Project would continue to steward the land, maintain the trails, and oversee the compliance of the woodlot management plan. Because I know that came up, you asked the question of was I aware of what went on in the meetings. I saw the February 21st meeting where you had questions about, well, does that mean we've got to hire somebody to oversee the management of the land? No, you're getting a whole bunch for free here. And volunteer services from a competent 30-year experienced steward of the land will continue to do that. Nobody gets paid for that, it's all volunteers. I happen to live on 5 acres that were carved out of it, so you've also got basically an on-site guy 24/7 to make sure that the land is not abused. When I hear that someone's going out there with a loud-sounding vehicle that shouldn't be there, I go out there. And it's happened once or twice, and, it's misunderstanding, and, the person leaves. But I just want to make sure that the goodwill around this, there's no funniness here. It's just, we'd like to make this resource available to the town, and the number of people who use it, who aren't residents of the town, would continue doing their volunteer work. And frankly, if, since we have the potential for making connections with the 90-acre parcel of town forest that's already there, let's connect those trails. And as I indicated at the last meeting, which I was attending, 2 or 3 abutting landowners would say, sure, let's sit down with the land and talk about how we could let the trails cross our land so that, you got 400 acres instead of just 90 acres, which people can use as a town resource. So I don't know, that's more words than I needed to say, but.
Well, I don't see there's a big problem. I like the idea. My only concern would be with the Manitou group.
Yeah.
Not taking, control of the property, being volunteers to steward it under the town's operation, versus just doing their own thing.
Well,
And running their own programs.
Can I make a suggestion?
Do you know what I mean?
We would have, after the transaction, we'd basically sit down and say, okay, you guys, let's be clear about what Manitou does, and let's be clear about what accountability Manitou has to the town.
excuse me, why would we be doing it after the transaction?
You can do it
rather
before the
than
transaction,
before?
you can do it either way, I don't care
I
when you
mean,
do
it
it.
seems to be that we really, really need to know what's going on, and who's going to be the owners of the property.
There's no question about who the owner is, the question is,
If we follow in the way you,
see, what are the priorities? If you want to go out and walk all the trails now, that's great, but you better have pretty good snowshoes. If we want to close the deal sooner, then we just say, okay, we will have an arrangement whereby we come to an understanding is that this is what the town does, this is what Manitou does. If 99% of the activities are in Manitou's basket, that's basically what I'm offering to do. Is basically we would continue doing what we do. The only thing we don't do after the transfer of title is that we don't pay the insurance and we don't pay taxes. If you say, well, we don't want you to do camps there, or we don't want you to hike there, we'd scratch our heads and say, well, let's see, what is it that you would like to use the land for? And we sit down and we do that. I mean, how do we create a collaborative process that's right for everybody? That's the only reason that our nonprofit is offering to do what we're doing.
okay.
So anyways, on this land deal, to make it happen, right?
Yeah.
The only restriction you want is that no snow machines crossing it. You want to keep the land for conservation.
Yeah.
And it's going to be
But he
leave it to
also
the
wants
town.
Manitou to.
He wants
They-
the people to.
It's not controlling any, let's get rid of this
Okay,
control.
not controlling,
No.
but as far as operating the conservation,
They're suggesting.
And-
We are offering that as a service if you wish
That's
to
not gonna be part
accept
of the
the
deed, right?
invitation.
okay, okay, okay.
I don't know how more,
That's clear.
thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, that's the way I
Can we have
understood it.
some, I'm sorry, Mike, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, go ahead,
Oh, go
Mike.
ahead.
We already have a town forest that
Can
we
you
can go.
stand up a little?
Sure, Frank Saponsky, South Newfane. We already have a town forest and we have trails all through that people hike. We have hundreds and thousands of acres in this town that are legal town trails you can hike, that are, somebody just owns the land, but it's a legal town trail, the Old County Road, Silver Mine Trail. There's tons of land that you can, and if it's not posted, you can hike it. My neighbors are out hiking all the time. Behind me, there's 942 acres that aren't posted. You can hike it, hunt it, do whatever. The Toby Trust owns it. Behind that, it's the Sosimo Lumber owns 1,600 acres. He only posts a little piece, Carol told me, around his camp. This is all land. There's no stipulations. We're getting tax money for this. This land, it's in current use. I thought I heard tonight that the development rights have been sold, which kind of bothers me.
Given away. They were given away to the Vermont.
Okay, so it can't be developed, and that's the purpose of current use. Current use says, we'll reduce the value of your land as long as you don't develop it. So,
No, actually, that's not true. Current use is, as long as you maintain the,
forestry program, I'm
yeah,
saying current use.
yeah,
If you don't
that's
maintain a
different from
forestry
development.
program, they will kick you out,
Yeah,
and you will pay a penalty.
yeah. That's true.
So, we
Okay.
have tons of land all over this town. I don't know,
Test-
Doris has got maps and,
Testimony by the planning commission was very clear about their enthusiastic response to this, coming out of the community forum that was held last fall, where more than any
I
other.
never heard of, I'm a town official here, and I never heard about this community forum. And.
Well, I
attended it.
I do not want to speak on behalf of the planning commission, but you can ask any one of those planning commission members who was really pushing me to do exactly what the family is doing, saying, more than anything else, this is what the town residents have been asking for, and that is for the town to take an active role in enhancing the recreational opportunities for residents and for inviting new families to come to do something that other towns don't have. And that's what really,
But we do have it. That's the thing, we have the town forest.
Doris?
I wish Angela were here to talk on behalf of the planning commission.
There's two sides to every story, and oftentimes when people talk about, well, there was this forum and the majority of the people there's another majority of people who weren't there, who may have a difference of opinion. Now, as Frank mentioned, in our town forest, we already have 6.5 miles of trails, and I don't know how many you're talking about.
Ninth.
And we have, on this map of legal trails that we have, there's 12.5, so we have almost 19 miles of trails and land that people can use. I see no benefit to the town of taking more property off of the grand list and having more non-taxable property. We already have 42 parcels that are non-taxable in town, and the amount of value for those non-taxable properties is $8,316,000. That's a lot of value that isn't being taxed. And in current use, we have this last year was 89 people that were in current use in this. The new number is 91 people. And out of current use, let me see how many acres we got here. There's 336 acres that are in current use, and the amount of that value that's taken off for land use exemption is $15,358,000. I can't see, our taxes are high in this town, and they're getting higher. Why we would take off, reduce our grand list even more by taking this property.
Doris,
Excuse me.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Please.
I wanted to speak to the point.
Now,
Go ahead.
excuse me, in this kind of meeting, the people are acknowledged by the chairperson to talk so that everybody gets a chance.
Thank you
So
for
it's
clarification.
Doris's turn right now.
Okay.
Made me lose my train of thought. But I think there's something else that's not being said about this whole business. I mean, yeah, it sounds like apple pie with vanilla ice cream and all of that, but I think there's more to it that we're not really hearing about, and I don't think we should rush into it. I think we should see the actual agreement type thing that you're talking about. I think that the town's attorney should really see it and look it over before the select board makes any kind of a thing, or you keep pushing on this whole situation for your own personal family interest.
Michael is next.
The point is, Doris, he hasn't been pushing it, you know?
Yeah.
He came to us once, we're the ones been trying to push it to see, because it went past the 60 days, so we're the ones that did this. It's only $1,900 a year from taxes. It ain't like they're gonna get rich off that.
It's
I
not,
mean, until they do away with the current use problem, I'm talking now. Until they can do away with the current use problem, I mean, how are you gonna raise that tax? And the way I look at it, if you can log it, you probably increase that $1,900 a lot more a year with logging some timber off this land you would the other way. And if he's gonna give it away to anybody, I'd rather see the town have it. Because he can give it to one of these conservation groups. State has to have permission. I don't think these conservation groups do. So if they get a hold of it, it's going off the tax market anyways. Give it to a church. It's gone. I mean, whatever else. I mean, so people can walk it. A lot of this land you're talking about walking, Sosco's and everybody else's. Somebody goes on and falls, gets hurt, sues them. Who are they suing? Sosco? Let that happen once. That land to go up. He's got insurance cover for walking. Down usually has insurance. So I just think that, you know, for $1,900, it ain't like you're getting rich off it
the
anyway.
town's gonna have to have some more insurance for that. But once you log it, how often are you gonna be able
You
to
got
log it?
200 acres there.
How
It's,
often are you going to be able to log it, and not all of it is able to be logged? There's not the same amount of value for that whole thing. I mean, there's timber there, but it's not valuable. So there's a whole, you know, the logging thing just doesn't, you know.
Well, they can set up programs every so many years. You can go in and log enough to make $1,900.
Within the program rate.
But I mean, I don't know. So it doesn't sound like you only a lot of people want, but that's just a couple of people here talking tonight too.
It would be Frank, and then Jen, and then Bill Gunther, the forester, has just walked in, so I'd like to, Frank, you can go next, you have your hand up.
We've owned the town where the town garage was built for over 20 years. We've never logged it once. If we do log it, the town is going to receive about this much out of the money. The logger gets some, a forester gets some, because it has to be marked. Am I right, Bill? It all has to get marked.
Poor Bill, he's just trying to catch his
The town
breath.
garage property?
Huh? Yeah.
The town garage
Sunset.
property is not enrolled in the current use program, so it's
No,
not
but
subject.
mayor's property on
Oh,
Sunset Lake Road.
I
It is
I
encouraged.
need to, it is, yes,
Frank,
yes,
Frank,
but it's
let
very
other
complicated.
people talk first, and then I'd like
Sure.
to have Bill Gunther stand
Yep.
up and say what he thinks.
All right,
but
I'm done.
I'm trying to give everybody a chance.
Mine was
Jen?
just a question, because you brought up that you had a revenue generating idea.
I do indeed.
Could he share that? Because I'm kind of curious. I mean, that seems like it might pertain to the town's question, if it's potential revenue for the town. I'd be interested to hear it.
And I also need to respond to a point that Doris made. So, but you said I had to wait my turn, so I'll wait my turn.
Yeah, no, I'm calling on people with the hands raised. Do you want to respond now? to Doris?
Sure.
Okay.
At the last meeting, I brought a photograph which showed that the one building site which had been approved on the parcel was actually John Walker's land, which is a beautiful building
We're aware of
site.
that. We're aware of that.
But the $1,900 tax includes that photograph.
That's gonna be changed. We're aware of that. That photograph is gonna be moved to Walker's property. That's got nothing to do with this.
So that doesn't change the value
No,
of the current tax?
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Okay, number one. Number two, I've got a whole discussion around other revenue generating activities, but maybe you should handle other questions first.
Okay, well, I just want to welcome Bill Gunther, who is a forester, and thank you so much for coming. If nobody has a new question or a comment right now, I'd like to hear what Bill Gunther has to say. I think that you know what's going on, or if you're not, maybe we can just quickly apprise you what's happening.
Okay, I got a pretty good idea. Well,
Okay.
first off, I want to say my arrival here tonight is I'm wearing my state of Vermont, Forestry Division County Forester hat.
Okay.
I wear a few hats in town. But I got Shannon's email today, and I knew you folks were meeting, and I've been following the selecting minutes, so I knew this was a topic that was being discussed. So I thought, well, okay, I'm going to be in the office late tonight anyways, so I thought I'll just stop by on the way home up the mountain.
Great, thank you so much.
Welcome. Okay, so I'm not sure how much background you want, but the board's aware that the program is enrolled in, we actually call it the UVA program in my department, but UVA, use value appraisal, current use, land use, all the same program. I'd like to get that right out there because that confuses people sometimes when they hear the different names. So it is enrolled. The Mayer family enrolled it under the Mayer Trust. And when you enroll a property in the program, the enrolled acres are encumbered by a lien held by the state of Vermont. And that lien is put there only to what we call secure the land use change tax. And the land use change tax is another term for, some people simply call it the penalty tax. And it's basically 10% of the value of the land that is developed. So if you enroll land and you choose to develop it, and I'll get to what development means in a minute, then you have to pay 10% of the value of that land that's developed to the state. So it's not that the state's going to yank anybody's property away. Again, it's just simply, essentially their insurance policy that the state is going to get that tax if it's due and payable, if in fact there is development that occurs. So with that behind us, the property is encumbered, although not the entire property. You can elect, and according to the map that I have, and I think this is current, Doris, you probably got the number off the top of your head, 229.2 acres grand list. Is that
That's true.
Okay, that's right, Mike. Okay, and then according to what I've got here, there were 18 acres excluded, but I just saw on, well, I was running a little later and I thought the tax department had showed something about a 5-acre. There's something done with 5 acres, and I.
A
It was a subdivision of 5 acres.
subdivision last year. I bought that with the house, so
okay.
that's
It was a
simple in my ownership.
So that's actually out of the Mayor Trust property.
That is true.
But that 5 acres was on the excluded portion. It was
Correct.
part of that 18 acres. Okay, good. That makes this discussion.
Because the house has always been there since.
Right, okay.
So just a change of ownership there.
Yeah, it's 2. I have 224
224.
because you took out the 5 acres.
Oh, okay,
Okay, take
with
up
that,
the-
yeah, got it. Okay, so then we're essentially talking about what is enrolled is 211.2 acres. Does that
Sounds about
agree
right.
with what you have for
Yes.
us?
Yes.
Okay, so the 211.2 acres is what is encumbered. Now, if the town accepts the property, as you probably have already heard, a municipality is not eligible to enroll lands they own within their own municipality. So for instance, Newfane cannot enroll the town forest on the old Lysick property where the town garage is. They did change the law a while back where if a town owns land in another town, you can enroll, like the town of Brattleboro, the watershed, they enrolled their land in Marlboro because Marlboro was literally killing them on what they were paying on taxes up to Sunset Lake. That was eligible, and that was due to a statute change, and I won't go into the reason for it, but it has to be land outside of your town. So that said, this would not be eligible. If land reverts to a municipality, then that municipality, since it is no longer eligible for active enrollment in the land, one of a couple things are going to happen. You would take title to this land, and I should say I'm speaking as a forester, not an attorney, but I understand a lot of the legalities behind this. I've worked with this program for 35 years now. If you accept the land with the encumbrance, then you're accepting the lien that's on the land. If you do that, then if you do anything that constitutes development, and I'll put quotes around that, then you are subject to be required to pay that land use change tax on those acres developed. Okay? This is going to be really a little bit confusing, so I'm going to try to draw this out, so hopefully it'll be clear. So, and what I did was I copied part of title, it's in Title 32, which is Taxation, Chapter 124, subsection 3752, definitions. Let's see if we can get those to the front. I made 3 copies.
This was actually part of the planning commission's testimony, the citation of what Bill was talking about, because this homework has been done.
Okay. Yeah, and I wasn't sure, Mike, exactly what I'm repeating, what I'm not. I just wanted to make sure that we kind of have the whole understanding. And there's a lot of verbiage there, so I'll try to break it down. Essentially, there are 4 sort of major categories that constitutes development. If you erect a dwelling on a property, and even a camp would count as a dwelling. In fact, they rolled it a yurt. Of course, it was in Putney where the yurt came up. That was considered a dwelling, and that person had to take 2 acres out of the program and pay the land use change tax. So 2 acres is payable and due on the land use change tax for each dwelling that would be put up. So again, if any houses would go up on the property, 2 acres would be developed. That's the first one. Number 2, if there's subdivision of any lots where the resulting parcels are less than 25 acres, and that's the minimum amount you need to get into use value appraisal. So if you were to split off and let's say decide you wanted to sell a 10-acre lot, you would have developed 10 acres and the land use change tax would be due and payable on that 10 acres. Number 3 is essentially something that's a non-conforming use, and by that I mean something that is not forestry related or agricultural related. And let me give you a couple common examples that will probably help. If you were to accept a new AT&T cell tower up there, for instance, the acreage that is encumbered by an easement for that cell tower, not necessarily just the footprint, but if they had the legal right to say clear it back 100 feet from the tower and the access road up to that, that acreage would have been developed. Sometimes it's a small amount. Bucky Pelsu up in Newfane Hill, he accepted that tower on his property, and I think we ended up taking 0.12 acres out of the program. So sometimes it's a very small amount. If, however, let's say we change the law and all of a sudden you can now have a landfill in town and you decide you want to put the new Newfane landfill up on the property and it's going to cover 50 acres, you would have developed 50 acres. Because again, that would be a non-conforming use, meaning not forestry or agriculture. So, I mean, the examples sort of go on, and I don't want to bore you with too many, but is that sort of giving you the gist of?
Okay, Michael?
Every one of those examples would be not applicable here because none of them would be allowed under the existing conservation easement of the Vermont Land Trust. There's no development, there's no use beyond what is specified in the forest management plan, even if the forest management plan for current use is no longer applicable, it's very applicable to the Vermont Land Trust easement.
Okay,
So
great.
all of
I'm
those
glad you
circumstances you
brought
talked
that up.
about are interesting, but not particularly apropos in the
I
situation.
assumed that, but I
Yes.
didn't want to assume. I don't have a copy of the easement, and I know there is a VLT easement, and we
Yeah.
work closely with, we consider VLT close partners to
Right.
the Forest and Parks Department. And typically, they will not allow a non-conforming use, so, but I just wanted to get at what it was, but that is great. Now, the fourth thing that constitutes development gets a little hazier, and that's if you do any timber cutting that is contrary to the forest management plan, if in fact it is still active, and the current plan of record is still active.
We'll be through 22,
22, I
I think.
think.
2022.
Yeah, it would go to, it would expire April 1st, 2022. Correct. So if there were any cutting done that were contrary to this plan, those acres cut contrary would be developed. And in addition, if there were any acres that were cut contrary to the program's management standards, now that gets a little grayer. We have published standards. You pretty much have to be a graduate of forestry school to understand what they really mean. But basically, we're asking for good forestry. And the fact that the VLT easement is on the property, they inspect the properties every year. We're supposed to inspect every 10. Frankly, we have so many now. I had 300 properties when I took this job 31 years ago, and I've got about 1,608 now, I think, as of today. So,
That's why you're in such good shape.
well, it's about, we're getting out about every 12 or 13 years, unfortunately. And that's why I haven't been out on this one, because it's been enrolled a little over 10 years now. So if there's a cutting that's in violation of those standards, and it would take me all night to describe what they are, but then those acres would be considered developed as well. And so once the management plan expires, then the property's no longer bound by the plan. So in 2023, the plan will no longer apply. The property would not be actively enrolled. So it wouldn't be bound by the plan, but it would still always be bound by those forestry standards. So what might violate the standards? Okay, well, I got to get into one of my least favorite terms that's not a forestry term, selective cutting. Selective cutting isn't a valid forestry term. What it means is somebody's selecting the trees. And why it's not a valid forestry term, because it's not related to forestry science. It just means that you're cutting some trees here and there. But who's doing the selecting and what is the purpose? It essentially means you're doing a partial cutting and not a heavy cutting of some sort. But if you were to go out on this woodlot and do nothing but just cut the best trees, what we call high grade, or commonly called cut the best and leave the rest, that would be a violation of the standards. But going back to Mike's comment on what VLT would require, they would say, no, this doesn't pass muster with our standards. So there are going to be protections there.
So that would affect logging, people who would be interested in logging?
You could harvest the property, but it could not violate those standards.
Right.
And if the town were going to conduct harvesting on the property, well, they wouldn't be legally required to use the services of a forester. And I should add that professional foresters, we became licensed under the state of Vermont back in July 1st of 2016. So and in fact, I'm just like any private forester. I had to apply and meet the requirements for a license. So while this property would not necessarily have to be managed by a licensed forester, my strongest opinion to the town would be that it would be, because that would help ensure, that would give you protections, because under our licensing law, if a forester went out and violated the UVA or the current use cutting standards, you would have every right for some sort of claim action against that licensed forester like that. So that would afford you a lot of protections. Plus, it would just be good stewardship of the land to manage it in that regard. Now, that said, this is assuming the town wants to acquire the property with the lien attached or the property encumbered. The other option would be is, as I mentioned, if you develop, you have to pay the land use change tax on those acres that are developed. At any time, if you decide you want to clear the title, and about 5% of the people that buy enrolled land, for whatever reason, either they have development plans, or they just don't want to deal with the state, or they don't like somebody looking over their shoulder, they may choose to actually prepay the land use change tax. And that can be done at any time, and that would remove the encumbrance. And Doris, what? I'm sure you've got our CLA right off the top of your head. That's a common level of appraisal.
The most recent one
Yeah.
is about 98% from the
About
latest.
98, okay, so it's 0.98. And that's simply how close the values in the town are related to true market value. So we'll just call it 1 for now. What I looked up on the property valuation review site right before I left, the enrolled land value on the property on the 200 plus acres is $283,000. So if somebody, either the donor or the town, are you on the same page?
We've got the same page.
All right, I like that. That lien could be completely erased and washed and discharged, basically taking 28,000, 10% of the value. Again, the value is 283,000, the 200 plus acres. Take 10% of that, it's 28,300. If you divide that actually by 0.98, so it'd be a tad more than 23,300, that would remove the lien entirely. So there's pluses and minuses to that. That way you have no encumbrance, but if the town doesn't intend to do anything that's going to constitute development, the lien on the property could almost be looked at as almost like a secondary conservation easement. It doesn't really mean a whole lot, because if the town's going to hold it, it's there, but if you're not going to develop, then again, there's no harm necessarily in it being there.
Yes.
And even though you could buy that lien off for $28,000, you will never be able to buy off the conservation easement from the Vermont Land Trust. That's there. That's there, and I would love to talk about the other idea that I think could be an important revenue enhancing opportunity for this land.
Okay, let me just check. Is there anybody else who has not spoken up yet who would like to add to the conversation that we've had so far? Doris?
Did that answer your question? Right. Okay, I just wasn't sure at first which property. Absolutely. My brain can only do one thing at once, so if I'm signing my name, that's all I can do.
My question had to do with hiking trails. How would that relate to development? You know, with hiking, if the town were to obtain this and there's the hiking trails, how would that relate to this lien and so forth? Does that have?
Yeah, that's a good question, that it does come up. Where it often comes up are properties that are, we'll call it actively involved, and we'll assume that this property is inactive now. It's still got the lien attached, but it's inactive. In the case of active enrolled properties, if you put a hiking trail system on your property and you state that you can't let a log skidder or any kind of logging machinery across it, and you want a protected corridor, then that might not be compatible with the program. Usually that doesn't happen though. In the case of a property that is inactive, as this one would be, having hiking trails out there is not really a non-conforming use. It's recreation related. If you started, let's say, charging fees, let's say for things, or fees for people to ski or to snowshoe, and you engage in what appears to be a commercial enterprise, that can be a bit of a game changer. Now, I'm getting a little out of my bailiwick, I should add.
Yeah.
Our department works very closely with the Department of Taxes Property Valuation Review. So they actually handle the eligibility and we oversee the forestry part. So I'm sliding a little out of my bailiwick there. But in general, hiking trails are considered compatible with the program.
There's another very important wrinkle here which Bill did not raise, which Darcy's question actually is relevant to, and that is Act 250. And we have, because a former Manitou president was one of the crafters of Act 250, Bill Schmidt, we probably were more fastidious than we needed to be in terms of registering with the act and making sure we were in compliance. And with respect to logging and with respect to trails, there is a way to log the land in compliance with appropriate forest management standards as defined through the forest management plan that George Weir has been developing for us the last almost 10 years now.
There's a 250 permit or 250?
There is an Act 250 permit on there.
For the property?
Yeah,
Okay. I was
which
not
basically,
aware of that.
that was recently done to ensure that there wouldn't be a problem with the trail system. I mean,
Yeah.
it seems a little absurd. Act 250 is to protect,
Right.
against ski resort
But the
development.
trail thing it gets a little gray. It's one of those gray areas.
But I
And that's
just wanna-
probably a good thing. And Bill is, of course, he's one of the fathers of Act 250.
And
so-
Bill is still our godfather and making sure that we're doing everything by the book. So this is just to say, and I think I mentioned this in the earlier presentation, that we are in compliance with Act 250 and with the Vermont Land Trust easement requirements. But thank you for your presentation. It was right on target and it's applicable, but for the fact that Vermont Land Trust will not allow certain things that you actually spoke to. So.
Yeah, okay. So there are those additional protections in place. I just have to give you what's allowable within the spectrum of my duties, but the fact that it sounds like you've got a good tight easement on the property.
Yeah.
That
We've tried in various ways to try and shift some of that easement language with VLT, and they're quite steadfast against any such change.
If there are questions on the easement that folks want to pose at me, I would be happy to give my opinion, but I have to do that as a private citizen because I'm making an opinion on a partner organization, something that I don't have technical jurisdiction over, but I'd be happy to offer any thoughts on that. But it sounds like folks have really covered a lot of bases on that.
Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Okay.
We really appreciate it. And your knowledge obviously is beyond trying to, at least for me, to absorb everything in one sitting. But I'm glad we have the TV because I always review and then I can hear again what you're saying. And you certainly educated us a lot tonight.
Bill was there at the very beginning when my parents put this whole thing together, so he covers the full spectrum
I knew
of
Pam
activity.
and David very well.
Yeah.
And there's I'll just tell one quick funny story. When my colleague was inspecting your sister's property, Annika's property in Weathersfield, she showed up on her BMW motorcycle and meeting Tim Morton to walk the woodlot.
Yeah.
And she's riding in on her Birkenstocks, and Tim figures, she takes the Birkenstocks off, figuring, okay, she's gonna put her boots on now. She put the Birkenstocks in the saddlebag and walked the woodlot barefoot.
She's doing that in the desert now in Arizona, but she still has her
I never
BMW.
forgot that story. So, just a little side note. The mayor family was your parents were wonderful people. A lot of great chats. So.
You were a part of that heritage. So. Can I continue?
Yeah, where are we up to with what you want to say?
I wanted to talk about the revenue opportunity.
Okay. Can we do it in a few minutes because we have other things on the agenda?
I can't say how long you will want to ask questions, but my presentation can be within a few minutes.
Okay, great.
A number
Thank
of you know my mom died 7 years ago, and when I approached her with the idea of being buried on the land, she said nothing would please me more. The Mayer family burial designation on the survey recorded with the town has her there. Another burial was made there last summer with appropriate approvals from this office. Green burial has become a really important movement in this country, and conservation cemeteries have been an extension of that. There are a number of different conservation cemeteries that have sprung up around the country, and the person who's actually the head of the Green Burial Council of the US, who wrote this book, happens to be a friend, has suggested that an important opportunity, should we work with you all on this, would be what would happen if the standards that were used to bury my mom and to bury a group of cousins up on the Manitou land were to be formally adopted for 5 acres of the land, which is either on my personal land or a combination of my personal land with the land that the state would own, for conservation cemetery. Basically, conservation burial is you put someone in the ground without any embalming, without anything like a casket that, you know, would have, well, you wanted to say something?
I do. I'm sorry. I would like to just interrupt for a minute, because I think, first of all, we had discussed that in the past, but I understand this. But what I'm hearing, and I don't know if anybody else is hearing, but I do have to say what I'm thinking right now, is that I'm feeling again that even if the town took on the land, you have a lot of thoughts about what you would like to see happen to the land. Let's say to have a burial site or to have other things. And when we spoke at other meetings, on the open meetings that's on TV, one of the things we had all agreed to at other meetings was the understanding that if the town would acquire this land from your family, the town then is 100% responsible and owns that land. And therefore, as long as we follow the rules and regulations of current use and all the other things, it's the town's decision about what to do, not to bring up other thoughts and ideas from the previous owners. And I need to say that.
And as I started to say, whether it's on my land or whether it's on the town-owned land or a combination, I'm simply saying that the opportunity exists for several $100s or more per person who's put in the ground is a way to generate money. And I raise it now as something that could be considered. I have some information here with how certain other places around the country have done this.
But
And so this is not a condition, I'm simply saying
No, I know,
it's a
but-
different way.
But we're having two different conversations right now. We're trying to figure out, as a town, if we want to take on the responsibility of accepting land and then being totally responsible for it, or not accepting it. And if we accept the land, from what the select board has said in the past few months, and we can review it on TV, and I don't know, maybe some members here have changed their mind, is that if the town takes over the land, we are 100% responsible, and we make our own decisions about what we do. And you can come up with lots of things you can do, but we're going to go with the laws and the requirements and what the town itself wants to do with it, not to have input from previous owners. That's what we've said. Now, if there's a change in that,
I don't think that's anything that we have a problem with. Yeah, that's what we've agreed on.
right.
Yeah. I don't see where there's
Right,
a
that's what we
condition.
agreed on, but all I can see what he's saying. He was just trying to show you a way that you
Yeah.
might be able to.
There's ways to
I
generate
mean, if
money.
you want to do something like that, it's up to whatever, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
He's just showing you a way that that $1,900 could be made up. You know,
He's not mandating it, it's just a
Thank you.
I know it's
suggestion.
not, no, I
Thank you for the
understand that Michael is not mandating anything. Gunther?
Something called horse before the cart. this whole thing cannot be settled by the select board.
Right.
It must be settled by a town meeting, I think. Because there's money involved, there's property involved, there are all sorts of things involved that must be settled before you can sit down and negotiate. So taxes, the whole thing is totally up in the air until you have a meeting by the town and have a vote.
All of this has been run through attorneys, and they've said, no, this is a select board decision. I was very much wanting to have an answer 3 months ago as to whether or not this needed to be a town meeting decision. And people on the planning commission researched this and came back and said, no, this is, and they, all of this was in the testimony given in December that that's not the case. This is strictly a decision of the select board.
I think, Gunther, that's correct, that the select board does have the authority to make a decision about it without going to a
Well,
town.
where does the money come from? I mean, since I moved here 25 years ago, my town taxes have doubled, and they're now beyond deductible. So how much does this per year gonna cost the town or me?
That's a very good
And it
question.
can't be nothing. It just
That's
can't
why
be.
we offered, can I respond? That's why we offered, alongside giving land, giving $20,000 in lieu of taxes. That was part of the offer that was made.
But it's only, what is it, like 20, the rumor was that that's been withdrawn.
10 years.
I don't care what rumor there is, that hasn't been withdrawn. If somebody wants facts, then let's ask facts. The reason for bringing up the idea of conservation cemetery is that becomes a natural way to both heighten recreation, conservation opportunities, more interest in trails, all of this plus $500 to $1,000 per body going into the ground. I had a hand drill down there. I was testing sites. Having done it twice, I know what the standards are, and there are a number of potential opportunities for doing that on my land or not on my land, or both. What I simply say that is that becomes a way of enhancing everybody's value in this situation without logging. Logging could also be a part of the total picture, but I throw that into the mix because this is a way that the town could actually move into a leadership position in something that, again, I don't want to take more time. I mean, I have a quote here from one of the conservation cemeteries. It's a very short one. Can I just read it? All those who come to be buried or visit the cemetery contribute to the land as a living memorial and our community's legacy of conservation. As both a cemetery and a preserve, Prairie Creek Conservation Cemetery invites visitors to connect with nature in new and meaningful ways. I mean, it's simply an additional conservation activity that happens to be revenue producing. So I just put that out there. It would require a nod from you all to say, yeah, this looks like a good idea. Even if you don't want to do it on your land, if you like it for my land, I would have to go before the DRB because right now there's a zoning restriction. I'm in a rural designation, so technically cemeteries can't go there, but this is a very different kind of cemetery. I've probably overstayed my visit here, but I just want to plant that seed. It's something that has very low impact, very, very small footprint, and in fact it gets lots more people engaged in the outdoors and doing things that honor really what is going back to what our forefathers and foremothers did hundreds of years ago. Leave it at that. If it's something that you'd like more information on, I could give you information on how that might be something worth exploring. I don't know if this discussion means that you want to push everything back or whether you want to accelerate moving forward.
You know what, listening to you talk about that,
Yeah.
I have no problem with it. Personally, I know about it, I have thoughts about it. I agree that it's something very worthy about thinking about. The thing that I get nervous about with all of this is that, and and I have to deal with this, and I'm still feeling somehow that if we buy the land, if we would accept the land from you, I'd be nervous the way you said before. Well, once the deal is done, then we can talk about what we're gonna do with it, which to me is a way that I could never do a deal like that, but I'm just speaking about myself now.
No,
I suggest you sequence it any way you like. I thought getting it done was important, in which case we could do it out. I mean, this is all about good faith. Nobody's making money here. I said, we are digging into our pockets for $68,000 to make this happen. And if that's not something that you guys want, we can find alternatives, period. But I very much liked what was going on in our interaction last time, and I hope we can get back to that.
Yes, Frank?
Could I ask David a question?
Can you stand up a little?
Sure. Have you offered this land to any other nonprofit in the state? Have you offered it to the state or?
Yes,
And what did they say?
the state would love to do it. The state would love to take it. The problem with the state doing it was, they say, yeah, but we are not going to say that snowmobiles would be restricted, which is why we came to you.
Isn't there Vermont Land Trust?
Vermont Land Trust they don't have a specific restriction against it.
Did they deny? Did you offer it to them?
In terms of,
Yeah.
they're not in the business of taking title to property such as ours. The conservation easement is there, therefore they have no incentive. It's already been conserved. If there's a vulnerable piece of land that they think they could hold for a while and then make available to somebody else, then perhaps they would do it. But they have many, many more offers for something like this than they can. This is not a high priority acquisition for them.
I mean, for me, just thinking about this and knowing we already own some town trails and land all over this town that people can hike on, and there's not posted, and you can hunt it, and if you shoot somebody on somebody else's land, you can't even sue the owner for this. There's state laws because we like open land. We want to have open land. The people above me, my neighbors, have thousands of acres of open land, and for you to come here, you're asking the taxpayers of Newfane to shell out $1,900 a year that they're not going to collect in taxes, if that's the number, if it's whatever it is.
Well, you can own the land or not, but the $1,900, if we give it away, is it's
Yeah, but
gone.
then we're going to collect tax on it. If you give it
not-
away to
not-
somebody, even if it's in current use, it'll be, you're paying $1,900 a year.
Well,
It's also a nonprofit.
It's a nonprofit.
I
You give it
wish-
to a
I-
church. You give it to a church, they don't
They
care.
don't want it. Who wants it?
I wish the planning commission were here because they were the ones that were really asking me to do this. And now you have all these crosswinds.
because
It's a little hard for me, frankly.
it does come with money.
It comes with money. It's not like we're asking you to, the thing is being turned around in ways that I'm just not happy about. And I wish we could get back to where we were. And I don't know whether it means, getting planning commission here or the conservation here so that they could make the case. I'm not just this lone wolf out here asking for it to happen. Frank, I spent quite a bit of time with the members of the planning commission, and to a person, they said, my goodness, this is great. How can we help you make this happen? And here's why, all the input we've gotten, this is what we think, volunteering, working for the town, this is what we really want to have happen.
I work with the chairman of the planning commission for this town, and I never heard about it.
Well,
I heard
I
about
can't
it
speak
after
to
the
that.
meeting happened. I live right down the road. I've been more than happy to go to Lynn's house and sit in on this meeting and put my 2 cents in for whatever it's worth.
Maybe you and Lynn and I should sit down then.
I'm sorry, Jen.
Just as really brief, I think we actually kind of live near each other, and I know exactly what you're talking about with all the acreage up behind our house, and that it's true, you can go hike, but it is different. People from out of town aren't going to access places like that don't have trails, because you don't know what kind of property you're on, and even we feel sometimes funny about walking through people's property who we don't know.
Right.
So I think there is some real value in having a real designated town area that are town trails that
Well, that's
everybody
what
feels.
Frank is saying, that we have so many.
Well, no, Frank is saying we have so many that aren't designated. They're there.
Right.
But not everybody's comfortable using them. What he's offering is something that is officially open to the public.
It becomes a cultural asset.
Yes.
And it becomes something that can be promoted within the town to outsiders to bring in tourism, to increase your economic benefit for the town. And if that's, I mean, that's the whole thing, is economic development. If people's, property taxes are going up, how many businesses are there in town that are supporting the tax base? Not a whole lot. So those that we have, we really have to conserve, and we need to also find other ways to drive the economic benefit for people to come here and spend their money. So I think it's a positive thing. I came from Saratoga Springs, New York, and was involved in development of the cultural assets, the arts, the historic cultural assets, and it renewed that town. I think it went overboard, but certainly I think here in this area we have a small village. We have some small businesses. We have WW, which is a very large business for our town and helps with our tax, covering taxes. And I think we should try to do as much as we can economically in resources. And we don't live in the woods. We're right on Route 30. It cuts right through town, and I think we should try to look at all options to help the tax base.
There are people from Japan who know about Manitou. It's interesting.
Right, they've done an excellent job in promoting their offerings.
Is there anybody else who has something to say this evening?
Just,
Gunther?
when we first moved here, we had 2 tourist buses stop almost every day. Now, they drive through to Strap or even further.
Right.
I can just see it, the new placard advertising Newfane, come get buried in Newfane.
Or come see Newfane.
Or go snowshoeing on these trails.
Right, come explore the trails of Newfane and the railroad trails, train tracks. I mean, there's a whole thing that's happening here, and it would be great to be able to add another cultural asset to Newfane to bring additional people to the community. And they may want to stay here and buy properties and raise their family.
One important aspect that we have to remind ourselves of, this is all subject to also discussing this with the town attorney and getting legal advice. We are not going to do that without having legal advice, and I assume you wouldn't either.
This is not going to end up being problematic from a legal standpoint. The title work, all that stuff, it's basically if the select board can make the decision. We know that it's all in the statutes. That material has been provided and given. If there's reason for the town not to want to proceed, I should know that. I thought we were past that. I'm sorry that we lost our conservation donor, which would have meant that we'd have closed this thing beforehand, coming up with the kind of money. I don't know if you got $68,000 to put into this project, but it's pretty hard for me. It's pretty hard for my surviving sisters. We're willing to do that. If there's real feeling that this is not the right thing, so be it. But I think that's the wrong direction. I kind of like where we were headed, and there's a little bit of pushback that I'm feeling right now, and I don't know what to do with it.
Well, Michael, we only met once with you, and we were very interested, and we thank you very much for the proposal that you had, and the select board signed an agreement in terms of memorandum of understanding.
Mhm.
It also included there that we need to go through terms and conditions, we
Mhm.
need to have
Mhm.
legal counsel,
Mhm.
and it also said 45 to 60 days. Now, I know that you don't, but.
Good faith.
Yes, but we never heard from you again.
I tried. I mean, let's.
I mean, we just never heard from you again. And we asked each other out loud what's
Well,
going on.
that doesn't hold my decision up.
I'd like to get on with it if we're gonna do something. The only two things I see is the snowmobile thing and a lot of it stays in conservation use, right? As other than that, you don't have no other restrictions on that land. And
That
it's got
hasn't
the-
changed.
It's got the timber thing on it. I mean, what we plan on doing is trying to get the paperwork together so we can go ahead and do this. And I mean, yeah, it's been 90 days or whatever, stuff like that, but he's here
Stuff takes
tonight.
time sometimes.
It's a hard winter.
The reason I wanted to raise the business of conservation cemetery was everybody's having to sacrifice here. And I had wanted to open the discussion about if we can agree on different ways that, I mean, I know I've had some pretty serious animated arguments with my sisters about, they say, well, don't give money to Newfane. I said, hey, I can't go back on that good faith offer. Let's find a way to make this happen. We talked about sugaring, we talked about all these different things that might be a possible way of generating that in lieu of taxes payment. So that's the kind of thing. I mean, my whole work is around building collaborations around difficult issues. That's what I do when I'm not doing this. And that's why I wanted to start raising this now, because I think this does have an important contribution here. I'm not neglecting either the difficulty of coming up with 20 grand along with the unencumbered property, but I'm trying to figure out ways that everybody can say, hey, this really is a good thing, and it's a win-win all the way around. And that's what I'd like to explore further with you guys. And I can't do that without your nod of what that exploration might mean. But, I don't know, you tell me where you want to go with this.
I just had a quick question with the burial thing. So would that income go towards the 20,000? Is that what you're?
Well, what I was suggesting is that if, Manitou's going to be doing some fundraising to try and give the town cash. The family is going to have to make money so that they can give it to the town. Instead of just writing a check, maybe we can use the land itself as a way to offset some of that good faith obligation. I mean, I'm not saying that there should be a $20,000 lien to make sure that we pay, but I'm saying let's together work out a way that can create income so that we can support the town to achieve what we're all trying to do together. And I think that's the approach. That's my reason for wanting to raise this.
So essentially, you don't have the $20,000 that you had offered to us originally in cash?
When the conservation donor disappeared,
Okay.
we have to pay the 4 things that I went through to make this transaction work this way.
Uh-huh.
I've got to go out and get other jobs so that I can write a check to you guys. I'm trying to find a way to make that requirement a little less burdensome to me and my family.
Okay.
Here's one other way I just thought of, so you could do that.
What's that?
It's $1,900 a year, right? For,
That's what it is now. Yeah.
Current taxes
Correct.
change,
Yeah.
tax rates change.
it could go down, could whatever, you know. But what I'm saying is, stretch that out over so many years, the family pays that out, because if we take the $20,000, we're gonna put it into account to stretch out over 10, 15 years to pay that 19,000 back. So why couldn't you do that, that they have it right in your thing, that they pay $2,000 a year for,
But what if the taxes go up? I
you
mean,
know, what
that's
if they go
always
up, what if
the
they go up to get the 20 grand? That's up to us to worry about at that point.
No, that's
taxes
What if
right.
they go down?
Well, what I'm saying is, I mean, you can still generate some money up. I mean, Dave Bill, I want to answer, like, Frank just said something about the logging thing, right? How many times you ever go on somebody's logging lot and they don't make some money off it, they don't own it? Not very often, right?
Not unless they're just cutting firewood.
Right.
Why don't you
But even
cut the
firewood, and
fuel?
they get a few bucks for it,
Yeah,
right?
$5 a score, so.
So I mean, that's what I said, at night,
5 to 10.
but on an average, when it's logging, they make money, they're not doing it for nothing, you know?
Yeah.
They don't let that timber grow for nothing, or if they did, they'd cut it, put it into a field and sell a house or something like
I mean, the average is often
I mean-
a few $100s an acre.
that. Right.
Can be more if you got veneer, obviously, but
Right.
several $100s an acre anyways, at a minimum. And that's just doing a partial cut, that's not doing heavy cut.
Yes,
I
Bill?
wanted to add a couple other comments.
Sure.
Since I technically work for the executive branch of government, my big boss is Governor Scott. And Governor Scott ran on a very strong platform of enhancing economic development. And the formal name of my department is Forest, Parks, and Recreation. Well, about 25 years ago, we lost our recreation division due to cutbacks during the recession in the 90s. So most of us just call ourselves Forest and Parks. That said, my commissioner, who is the former Chittenden County Forester, Michael Snyder, he's a real visionary. And he's a Democrat. He and Governor Scott seem to get along pretty well. And Michael's vision was he sees the handwriting on the wall as what has happened in other communities, parts of northern Maine where the paper industry died, parts of Oregon, like out in Bend, where recreational opportunities have greatly enhanced local economies without really doing harm. So Michael and some people got together and formed something called VOREC. And it's basically, let's see, the Vermont Outdoor Recreation Economic Council. And they've had several meetings. It's a pretty bold initiative. But one of the things out of this is to sell the Vermont brand, and a major part of that being recreational opportunities. So I point that out. I mean, we were very blessed when we got the town forest because we had a real gap. We didn't have any public recreation opportunities between Broadborough and all the way out to Townsend and Jamaica State Parks, and then this happened. But the property of Manitou, it's already in place with a marked designated trail system. So I don't want to speak for my commissioner, but my sense is he's not specifically aware of this, but my sense is if he were totally aware of the project, he would likely support it. Well, he was aware, in fact, of the donation, but unfortunately, we have to accept lands into our state lands unencumbered in terms of recreational opportunities. And unfortunately, that means if there's a motorized restriction, we can't accept it. And that's just the way it is in our department. But that said, my sense is if he were sitting here tonight next to me, I think he would wholly support this project.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
And as somebody who does a lot of outdoor recreation,
I'm sorry, I can't
I
hear you.
asked somebody who does a lot of outdoor recreation, snow,
Yes.
backcountry skiing and snowshoeing, and lived in a lot of places where that was very much part of the trail system. Having it not being open to snowmobiles actually would draw
Yes.
a group of people because there is the whole vast trail
Yeah.
already for snowmobiles. So
Right.
Yeah, it's a different crowd of people. And,
I don't think that we had any problem with that idea. that
well, no,
we
I
would
think
not
it's
want
just a
it.
bonus for what a certain it would
Right.
draw. It's
Oh,
a
yeah,
draw.
no, of
It's a
course.
draw.
Sure.
Yeah, I can't be a try. I'm leading a group next week out to an old growth stand in Somerset. And the thing I'm most fearful of, we got to ski up the old county road up the west side of Somerset Reservoir. And I took a group up there and we were single file and a couple of wingnuts. And I have nothing against snow machiners, but
Right.
when you got a can of beer in your hand and you're rolling 60 miles an hour
I know.
and you come around the corner and there's 6 people in cross-country skis, we almost lost a couple of people.
yeah,
That happens a lot around Somerset.
yeah.
It's a shame. Fatality there 2 years ago. Speed.
Well, where are we at?
I loved your suggestion, and maybe we incorporate that into this discussion of the idea of staging the payment, looking at this revenue enhancement opportunity as a separate idea, but
Doris?
I think the select board needs to speak with their attorney.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
We've already done
That we meet with the attorney?
yes,
Yes.
yes,
I mean, that,
before you make any final decisions.
Yeah. but we have to.
is there anything you'd like me to do at this point?
I think what I'd like to see is it drawn up, the paperwork to show the restrictions. The snowmobile and the thing, then we'll take that with the attorney and meet with the attorney.
Yeah, we need something hard,
Yeah.
black and white.
By when,
Talk forever.
how long do you think that you would need to meet with Gene Giddings if you're still using it?
We've been asking her, she's really busy. I didn't get an answer before this meeting as to when. It may be done now, but I don't have word that it's disclosed.
Can you find out and let Shannon know?
I can.
Okay, thank you.
Should,
Okay. Anybody else have comments or last minute thoughts for this evening? So
The subject.
I think right now we're at a point where we're saying that we appreciate everybody's comments and thoughts tonight. I thank you very much for coming here and explaining what your visions are. And as a select board, I think it's very important that we, next step, meet with the town attorney.
I think the next step's gotta be wrote up on a piece of paper showing the agreement.
No, exactly,
And then we go
I'm
to the
sorry.
town attorney.
Right, that that
And
your
what
attorney
restrictions?
have an agreement, and then we can move forward to our attorney. Is that what you were saying?
It's gotta be drawn up on a piece of paper showing the whole deal.
That's what I'm
What it is,
saying,
and
yeah.
then we go to the attorney with us.
Yeah, okay, so that's what I'm saying, basically, like, it's time for the attorneys to step in, and that we hire our attorney, you hire your attorney, and to, you draw up
Yeah.
exactly what you want.
Our attorney's in place, and
Yeah.
the work could be all done by now. She's been working for us a long time, trying to get something done
Yeah,
around this land. And
okay. So you'll let Shannon know when Jean can meet with you, or when you would hope to have an agreement to show.
we don't have to meet with Gene, we'll just get the paperwork, we'll see where that is. And, I don't know, I was hoping out of this meeting to have an agreement around how we deal with the 20. And
I'd make a motion that we put that in there, that's paid over 10 years at $2,000 a year. It's part of the whole land deal. It's
Is there a
designated 19,
second
because
to
if
that
not, we're gonna
motion?
put it in, try to make it work anyways.
Yeah, I'll make a second to that.
A discussion? I'm not agreeing with that right now. That's just my,
I don't either.
you don't do that.
And then we should wait for the full board then.
The motion just dies, it's time.
The motion is tied.
It dies.
Because the only thing I
Dies,
see is you
yes,
take
it
the 20
does,
grand,
yeah.
you're gonna go through it anyways within a
Right.
year or so anyways, and then you don't worry about the 19 anyways after that point.
So the motion dies because we had two for the motion and
We
two
don't have enough here to make a
right now. This is saying no. Right now.
To pay the 20,000 over.
Right,
Okay, so that motion dies.
right.
Okay.
Okay.
because there's two against.
I'm
So
just-
we're back to the motion being that you're contacting,
I'm just trying to see how we can work collaboratively to come to a good faith understanding for how we can deal with the cash from the Mayer family to the town in something that's feasible through some kind of creative understanding that's acceptable to all. If we can't go there, then this thing is just gonna hang out there
well,
for a
right
while.
now, we just had a vote about it. And so right now, there were 2 for and 2 against for this
Yeah.
moment, so the motion is dead.
That was one motion, and what I'm just trying to take this opportunity to see if there's a way that, like I say, sacrifices are being made all over the place to try and make this thing work. And I'm wondering, whether there's something that is acceptable to you that is less than receiving 20,000. And if not, then, maybe we walk. I don't know. What do you think?
I'd like to know what Chris has to say.
I don't think we should do anything on it till we have a full board.
Okay, good. I agree with that. How about, let's make a motion. Do you want to make a motion about that? We'll see if it's second.
Just come to the next meeting and discuss it, I guess.
Wait. Did you want to make a motion? Is that a motion that we
I
wait
make a
till we have
motion
the
that
full
the whole
board?
board, before we do any more on this subject, to have the whole board of selectmen here.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. Let's vote. Any discussion about that?
Well, you still gonna draw the paperwork up on the thing? without the $20,000 thing being involved in it right now? So
I
when
think
start
we
this
said
thing
that
going-
we would want you to do that with your attorney.
So proceed with that part,
Yeah.
and then bring it back to the board.
So the $20,000 thing is just an open question, is what we're saying. Because I think that's the thing that we've got to try and be creative about. I'm just wanting you to see it from my perspective, that what do I have to do to write that extra check? I don't know, I'm doing everything I can. I'm also trying to raise money with Manitou as a nonprofit to make this work. So I'm just asking you guys to be creative with me to figure out how we can make this
But we
work.
have a motion right now to, do we want to have a motion and a second about waiting for the entire board to be present to move on further?
When's that
about-
gonna be?
Well, I
mean,
don't know when
he'll call
Gary's
in at
coming
the
back.
next meeting. He'll be here by phone, which is April 2nd.
It'll be in 2 weeks. What, the 19th?
So I don't know, do you need a motion that we, on April 2nd, that we meet as a full board and make a decision on?
No.
I mean, you could make a motion to table till the next meeting.
Yeah. So I make a motion to table the discussion until the next meeting.
Anybody second
You
that
already have a
motion?
motion on the table.
Yeah, we
though.
did. I know, that's what I thought.
And I second it.
It's okay.
So.
So you gotta vote on it.
Yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
all
You can
those-
withdraw it.
Yeah, we said, all those in favor of waiting till we have a full board here, before we continue the conversation, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Oh, I'm frozen.
You're opposed? Okay. So we have, did you vote, Chris? You vote, oh, you said it. So we have 3, 4, and 1 against. Okay. So the motion passes,
Yes.
that we wait till we have a full board here.
And that's in 2 weeks?
Well, our next meeting is in 2 weeks.
When do you have a full board next?
Excuse me?
When do you have a full board?
Our
At
next
least,
meeting.
at least via telephone, we'll have a full board.
Lord willing, that we're all here.
And how do we know when the Lord's willing?
I don't know.
Yeah,
You
see?
just have to know, you know? You have to show up.
I don't suspect that he'll have a problem attending, because he attends usually via telephone. And I think that's kind of what Christopher meant, was as long as 5 board members are speaking and attending, whether by person or by telephone. Let me make sure. Is that what you meant?
Chris?
Well, I meant by person here. I can't hear what's said on the damn telephone myself.
So we're gonna have to talk to Gary and
I'll call
find
Gary
out.
and
Yeah,
find out
will
when
you
he's
talk to
actually
Gary,
coming
please?
back.
Okay. Okay,
It's the best we can do, I guess.
that's it for tonight about this.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. The next thing on the agenda for tonight is, wait. The fire department discussion.
Unscheduled members.
Unscheduled.
Unscheduled members of the public.
Oh, we already did that.
We did
We
that.
did that,
Scheduled.
Doris, we did that,
We did unscheduled.
we did
But I
that.
don't think you had everybody here at that point.
Oh, okay. Is there anybody else in the public right now who would like to speak about any subject we haven't talked about yet tonight? Any other things to talk about?
Any new subjects?
Yes?
Bob Powers.
Yes, hi,
Trail.
welcome.
I just want clarification on the Lister opening that might be up in April.
Okay. Are you willing to wait till the end of the meeting? You'll find that out, which hopefully will be in about 5-10 minutes.
Okay,
It comes under correspondence.
got it.
Okay, fire department discussion.
That will need to be an executive session because it's about litigation.
Right.
So
Do you want to do that afterwards?
we could do it at the end if
At
you
the
want.
end.
Well, yeah, that would be fine. 'cause
So I can
think
do
there'll be
the
motions.
correspondence now, right?
Yeah, you gotta look at the flyers.
No, we have to end this meeting.
I know, I realize.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yes, you're up to correspondence.
Okay, so Bob? Listen carefully. This is a letter from Lynn Forrest, written to the Select Board of the Town of Newfane. And it is dated March 19th, 2018. Dear Select Board members and Newfane residents, upon careful consideration, I have decided to resign from the position of Lister with the Town of Newfane. I have delayed my last day until April 26th in order to assist developing the grand list. I greatly appreciate having had the opportunity of working for the town and the townspeople for the past 5 years, and to have been part of a group of such dedicated people. Respectfully, Lynn Forrest. Thank you, Lynn, for writing this, and we wish you all the best, and thank you for all your years of service.
Need to let people know her term is until, she has 1 year left. So that means that her term would be up for next March town meeting.
Okay, so there's a vacancy that will start on April 27th?
Well,
Or how does that work? Well, for people to express interest in
the select
filling.
board needs to let people know that there's a vacancy and to ask for people who are interested. And it doesn't have to be whoever you, it doesn't have to be May 1st that a new person comes in.
Okay.
It's not like there can't be somebody not in there.
Okay,
You know, I mean, it's not like you can operate on 2 people.
okay.
As
So
long as we
Shannon,
got Doris on the
Yeah.
Shannon, can we take care of that?
Yeah, so we'll put it on the website, obviously, but I think because it's a paid position, it would be like any other vacancy for an employee that you would advertise it in the newspaper. And so I will do that tomorrow.
Okay, great, thank you so much. So do you have your answer? Good. Thank you. So now, that was the first piece of correspondence. We have 2 more. One is the monthly BLCT news, and this is a newsletter that comes out monthly. They also post their information online if you'd like to see it, and this is usually by Shannon's desk or on top of the file cabinets there for anybody to look at. There is a Municipal Assistance Center training event, and this is called the Spring Select Board Institute, and it's on Saturday, March 24th at Lake Maury Resort, Fairleigh, Vermont. It starts at 8:30 in the morning till 4:30 at night, and it's about Select Board rules and responsibility, understanding Vermont open meeting law, etc. So this is for people who are interested in finding out more about that, and you're going.
I'm going.
Yes, that's great. And the last piece of correspondence is from the Wyndham Regional Energy Plan. And there is something. No, that's it. Okay. So Shannon, this will be available
Yeah,
for
and
the
so
public
if
to
any
come.
board members want to come in and review it and make comments to the Wyndham Regional Commission, they can do so.
Okay,
Don't
great.
have to, but
Thank you.
sure.
Okay, so I think that's it with the, oh, here it is. Yeah, this is from, this Wyndham Regional Energy Plan is being sent out by Chris Campany, the Executive Director, who lives right next to the post office. And he will have 2 public meetings, and you can find out more if you're interested, or be up there in the file cabinet if anybody to look at. So I guess this is time for the select board, executive session, right? Shannon, are you crying? Thank you, Elsie, thank you, Gunther, thank you, Frank, thank you, Doris and Jeff.
And I'll get you something more organized.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marion.
Take care driving home.
Yes.
Now, we're
Thank
gonna
you.
meet- Are we going to meet him after?
Yep.
Are we going to need him after?
No, this is-
I don't think
there's any action to
so.
be
Because we
taken.
have executive session, then we just have to vote for liquor. We have to close this meeting and then reopen it for liquor license. Vote. And that's it, and then we do payroll.
We're gonna meet him after.
So I think we're
Do we
fine.
need anything?
There's
else?
really no action that's gonna be taken
No.
coming out of it.
No.
It's just an update.
You don't need it.
Okay, no, you,
You can go.
thank you for coming in, drive carefully going home.
Yeah,
We need to make
we need to
a
make a motion
motion.
to go into executive session.
Oh, okay,
I'll make a
I
motion
guess
to go
where's
into
the
executive
reason?
session.
Oh, it's, civil litigation.
Okay, so I make a motion for the select board to go into executive session and inviting Shannon Meckel to be with us in that meeting, and it is 8:25. Is there a second to that motion?
A second.
Okay. Thank you.